Thank you guys for tuning in to another day 3 of NFL free agency frenzy. I'm your host, Malik Wright, with Daniel Alameda, presented by First Star Logistics. It hasn't been a lot going on today, but there might be some stuff happening in the pipeline. Obviously, today is the official start of the new league year, so a lot of the releases, so on and so forth, have come to light. But with that being said, as always, if you guys do this favor before we get into the conversation, give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and turn on post notifications so you guys don't miss when we go live or upload content from the First Star Logistics studio. Daniel, a lot of stuff has been, you know, starting to be official, if you will, with the start of the new league year. But one move that I want to talk to you about before we jump into our Bengals, like we always do, let's talk about Calvin Ridley making his signing with the Tennessee Titans official. To be quite honest with you, I thought that move was a little bit interesting because I don't know if that's a needle mover for me. I know Calvin Ridley still is very talented, but to me, I don't know. I think that they paid a lot of money for the production. I'm not so sure what they're getting. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let me just start off by going at this, and once again, we appreciate you guys tuning in and excited for the show. If you guys, drop any comments, your questions down below. I like what Brian Callahan and the Tennessee Titans are attempting to do, right? That doesn't mean that they're going to have an extremely successful season, but let me just run through this, right? As of right now, Will Levis is their starting quarterback, okay? Will Levis is the guy that they're going to roll with. But when you look at the weapons, they went out and they made some big time splashes, right? You look at the running back, they got Tony Pollard and Tajee Spears. All right, pretty good running back, too. Then you got wide receivers. They still got DeAndre Hopkins. They got the former first round pick, Treylon Burks. And you just added Calvin Ridley. So while it is a lot of money, Malik, I understand that. You are surrounding your young talent with as much talent as possible, your young quarterback. And I can't fault them for that. If they believe in Will Levis, if Brian Callahan believes he can do something with Will Levis, you look at the weapon room. They added Lloyd Cushenberry to be their starting center, who we were big time fans of, former LSU guy, went to the Denver Broncos. I like what they're doing. Then you look at their defensive line, they definitely need to add some pieces. They lost, some pieces. They added Kenneth Murray, good. Besides that, I think their defense is definitely going to be a major issue. But as of right now, looking at their offense, Calvin Ridley isn't a superstar wide receiver, Malik. He's not. I don't know if he deserves that full contract, if he's going to fully live up to that. But when you look at the weapons around him, DeAndre Hopkins, Treylon Burks, they're going to make Calvin Ridley look that much better because Calvin Ridley was asked to be a number one wide receiver with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was. And he's not going to be asked to do that here. You got DeAndre Hopkins, the outside wide receiver. You got Treylon Burks, the other outside wide receiver. This puts Calvin Ridley in his place to where he thrived the most with the Atlanta Falcons. He was a slot wide receiver, a guy who's not great with his hands and not great, press man-to-man coverage. And that's what Calvin Ridley is going to give you. So it is a lot of money, Malik. I understand that. But props to the Titans for at least going out there and surrounding their guy, Will Levis. I'm very confident we'll know what type of quarterback Will Levis is this year.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts. I like what the Titans are doing. It's a lot of money. Their defense isn't very good right now. So I like how they're surrounding Will Levis with talent.
Yeah, man. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? We got a lot of Bengals fans in the chat. Obviously, we talk about everything on this. And Malcolm Willem, he says, Malik, give us some hope on DJ Reader. Well, let's jump right into it. I reported last night that DJ Reader is going to be visiting the Detroit Lions. I guess I'll start off by saying not good. Anytime you're a potential guy that you want to bring back in the building is set to visit another team, I can assure you, typically what that means is contracts have already sort of been talked about, discussed. We're bringing this guy in the building to see if he can pass a physical, right? That's basically what this is about. And you now have a question you have to ask yourself. And I guess I'm going to ask a lot of you guys to put your GM cap on. I'm asking Danny to put his Duke Tobin cap on or Bengals front office cap on. What are you doing, right? Bengals reportedly have interest in Eric Armstead. What are you doing? Are you throwing the bag at DJ Reader to keep him here, a known guy, you know what he brings to the table? Or are you going after Eric Armstead, a guy that offers a little bit more in the pass rush department? You see I see the positives with both guys potentially. And that's not to even say you'll land one of them. But who are you going after here? Are you going after Eric Armstead, a guy that's been a known commodity in the National Football League, and a good pass rusher, a guy that's been consistent too, multiple Pro Bowls? Or are you bringing back DJ Reader? Let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Personally, I'm going DJ Reader first.
Mm.
DJ Reader is going to be my priority one because I know exactly what I'm getting with DJ Reader. Besides the injury, of course, he has gone through 2 major surgeries. We understand that. But went back and rewatched some Eric Armstead film, whether it was, throughout the year, even in the Super Bowl. He put out a lot of great film, at the Super Bowl. What you can expect from Eric Armstead, he's going to flash way more than a DJ Reader would. And that's what you're going to get. 6'6". He, in the pass rush, he's got a lot of great moves. But I saw a lot of his sacks and a lot of his big time plays this year were from his edge rushers getting pressure. It was from, him being not the de facto number one breaking, an offensive lineman. So Eric Armstead is a guy who has gotten criticism for the rushing game, right? Not being a great run stopper, but he's good in the run game. If you have him one-on-one with an offensive lineman, Eric Armstead is a physical freak that is good enough to go out there and beat an offensive lineman one-on-one. So I'm going with DJ Reader first off, just because I've seen him be super consistent in the run game. In the passing game, he's a good pass rusher, not great. Eric Armstead is a level above him in the pass rush. But on the flip side, I think DJ Reader is the first priority. I think you wait to see if you can land DJ Reader. I would pay DJ Reader over Eric Armstead. But don't mistake that for if DJ Reader gets signed, you got to put all your eggs in the basket of DJ Reader or of Eric Armstead, because I went back also and watched Tyler Tart. I don't want to trash on him, but it is DJ Reader, Eric Armstead. Tyler Tart is a level below them, respectfully. Tyler Tart is a good pass rusher. He is a good defensive tackle, but Eric Armstead and DJ Reader will make way more of the splash plays. They are way more physical. They are able to dominate offensive linemen way more than Tyler Tart is. And I saw a lot of people, even in the chat, saying, Tyler Tart had a couple big-time flash plays. Yeah, he's got a nice swim move. He's very agile. But when I really look at it, it's getting dire, Bengals fans. And I understand that because you got 2 guys that you're looking at. And if it's not those 2 guys, you got 2 guys in the draft, Byron Murphy and Jerzon Newton. If it's not those 2 guys, the interior defensive lineman, it's not looking hot. So that's definitely my area of concern is, hey, it's day 3. It's time to get going now. DJ Reader, Eric Armstead, they're the priorities. If it's not, you put yourself behind the 8 ball when it comes to the NFL draft, because then you got to say, all right, are we going to pass up an offensive tackle, starting potential franchise offensive tackle? Are we going to pass up, going after, let's say they want to go after a cornerback. So if I'm the Bengals, it is my priority to go out and get one of those 2. Get one of the 2, DJ Reader, Eric Armstead, because you're still saving a lot of money right now. I believe, I don't know the exact numbers, so don't quote me on this, but around 20 to 30 million in cap you still have.
We're quoting on that. We're gonna quote on that.
And I believe they're still top 10 in the league in available cap space. So you got to go. You cannot leave free agency, Malik, without a DJ Reader or Eric Armstead. You just can't, because the way the rest of the roster is shaping up, it's good, right? You talked about getting Mike Gesicki for $2.5 million. You talked about the safety depth. You just added Geno Stone. I'm very confident in the 3 safeties the Bengals have now. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, screw the 17 games in the regular season, playoff time, man. Getting to Patrick Mahomes. How are you going to succeed at that if you don't have a top-tier interior defensive lineman? So I'm going after DJ Reader or Eric Armstead, and I'm not leaving without one.
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. I think that ship has sort of kind of sailed a little bit.
So.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you allow that guy to hit that road and head to Detroit, the chances of him coming back are very, very slim. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Because the Detroit Lions have a need for the interior of their defensive line, and they've made no qualms about that. They made it very, very clear this is an area that we need to focus on. So, unfortunately, you can't afford to sit around and wait anymore.
Yes.
You can't afford to sit around and wait anymore. You can't afford to say, hey, let's see what happens next. You have to be aggressive with the spot, because then what happens is, like we talked about for most of the last couple of days, you pigeonhole yourself going into the draft process. You need to leave out of free agency with an answer at the defensive line position. Luckily for the Bengals, a defensive tackle who has been a known commodity in the league, who has been consistent in the league, hit the open market. Luckily for them, this doesn't happen often. Could you imagine if there was no option out there? What would we be talking about right now? So luckily for them, Eric Armstead happened to hit the market, the open market. That's good. Okay. So how aggressive are you going to be for that guy? Because here's the thing. The Bengals have been trying to find that Geno Atkins guy, 3-tech, since he retired. And Sample, you said we'd be talking about Rankins. The fact of the matter is the Bengals have had a chance to get Rankins the last 2 off seasons and have not tried hard to pull the trigger on that. So maybe it's a Mike Gesicki thing. Maybe they'll show interest finally this year. I have no idea. But they're backing themselves into a very interesting position going into the draft. So yes, I'm throwing everything at Eric Armstead. Clearly, there are questions you have about DJ Reader, about his injury, right? Clearly, there are questions about his ability to stay healthy and what the long-term projection might look like. Or else that guy would have been signed already. You talked about how much you appreciate him. You talked about how much you wanted him back. Men lie, women lie, what? Numbers don't. And the numbers, we shape that out to based on what you're offering throughout the contract negotiation process. So you can't say a guy's super important to you if you're not really making a true effort to sign him. The fact that DJ Reader is expected to take this visit to the Detroit Lions tomorrow, if you let him go there, consider him gone.
Yeah.
You unfortunately cannot put yourself in a situation in which you're waiting and you're sitting around trying to figure out, okay, what's the next move? Guys, as we continue this discussion, if you guys can do us a favor, give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have 300 people, 350 plus people watching right now. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've only got 23 likes on the video. We'd greatly appreciate if you could. But no, let's keep that conversation rolling. The fact of the matter is the Bengals cannot afford to sit around anymore. You need to do something, whether that be via free agency, whether that mean via trade. You don't want to go into the draft process saying, we'll just figure it out in the draft.
Yeah.
And then you draft 2 rookies, and you're trusting 2 rookies along with BJ Hill to be the anchors on your defensive line. Mm-hmm. Bad business. So 100%, you need to do something.
Yeah. And there's Malik, I'm going to be honest. This is Delta Sapphire makes a great point. Well, let's talk about Eric Armstead. Right now we're looking at, he's on the open market. We're saying the Bengals should go after him. At the end of the day, it's up to Eric Armstead. And if I'm Eric Armstead, I'm a free agent. Where am I looking? Right. And the Houston Texans, your former coach, defense coordinator, D'Amico Ryans, the head coach there. They just traded Malik Collins to the 49ers, defensive tackle. If I'm Eric Armstead, I'm looking at the Houston Texans. I'm calling up D'Amico Ryans and I'm saying, hey, let me go play there. And that's the part that's scary about this, right? Because there is no tie for Eric Armstead to come to the Cincinnati Bengals. There's none. The only reason you come here is for money and to play with the contender and to be a starting defensive tackle, which makes it even more imperative that, you reported DJ Reader's going on his visit. I believe it was tomorrow, correct? To the Lions. That gives them now. That gives them today. You reported that yesterday. So that means they still have all of today before he hits that plane. And I'm worried that if you don't go out and get DJ Reader, then you're really banking on it's Eric Armstead versus the other 31 teams or 30 teams in the NFL. And as much as I want to say I watched a film of Eric Armstead, he'd be a good fit. At the end of the day, it's up to Eric Armstead. And who's to say that it's even likely that the Bengals go after Eric Armstead, or it's even likely that Eric Armstead wants to, pick the Bengals over other people. And that's the part about this conversation. You can control the DJ Reader talk, right? DJ Reader has a tie here. He's played here. But now, like you said, if he gets on that plane, I don't trust Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell not to get it done in that building. Mm-hmm. I don't. We talked with them at the Combine, Malik, and the way they discussed multiple years back, they said there's multiple parts of the process to build a contender. There is getting talent in the draft, and then there's talent acquisition outside of the draft. And they said,
Mhm.
we're in the talent acquisition phase. And damn right, that's what they're doing right now. Looking for the best possible talent. They are trying to run it back. And that scares me, Malik. And I think that's my biggest takeaway is, yes, if he goes to Detroit to, go take that visit, he's probably as much good as gone. So
Yeah.
the clock is ticking, and that's the
Well,
scary part.
I mean, 100%. So, again, it's a situation in which you don't fancy the Bengals position because this was already a weaker defensive tackle class. I think that's why a lot of Bengals fans were clamoring for the likes of Christian Wilkins or Chris Jones or all that kind of stuff like that. I think my only fear out of this is, what is Eric Armstead's market going to look like? Because we know he's going to have a market, right? Our team's going to be willing to pay him $21-22 million per year. This is a guy that's a proven commodity in the league, and you need that pass rushing upside, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is his market going to look like? Because if his market is anything like the market of a Christian Wilkins or, well, it probably won't be a Christian Wilkins market, but if it's anything close to resembling that, where people are willing to overpay, because that's what happens in free agency, well, that's not looking too good anyway. That's not looking too good in itself.
Yeah. Why would you not, if you're not willing to pay DJ Reader, why are you going to pay Eric Armstead $20 million? And I understand, yes, Eric Armstead doesn't have the injuries like DJ Reader had, but Eric Armstead's still 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually a great point that you made. If you're not willing to pay DJ Reader 15 or whatever he's going to 16, then they're sure as hell not going to pay Eric Armstead. Eric Armstead's probably going to make more than DJ Reader, or maybe not, but
I mean, he could.
In the same market.
Remember, because it's the pass rushing upside. Yes. It's the pass rushing upside. And I actually shared a little bit different than you.
Really?
Like, to me, if it came down to paying one guy $15 million a year who has a pass rushing upside versus the guy that's the nose tackle paying him $15 million a year,
yeah,
I'm paying the guy with the pass rushing upside.
Fair. And I think the part I would say, I think Eric Armstead's going to make more than DJ just because of the injury. And also, the dude had 2 sacks in the Super Bowl. And I don't know how much teams are going to weigh on that, but that's the biggest stage, the brightest lights, 2 sacks on Patrick Mahomes. But once again, he was playing alongside Nick Bosa. He was playing alongside that defensive line. So, man,
it's about what you value, right? Yeah. It's about what you value more. Like, for me, I personally could see a world in which Eric Armstead makes more than him.
Yeah.
But do you value a guy with 3 tech, even 5 tech type of upside ability? Because let's not just act like Eric Armstead's a pass rusher. He's a good run stuffer as well. He's not the specialist, right? He's not the type of specialist that DJ Reader is necessarily at stopping the run, but he's an anchor on the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
His length, his size is abnormal to that position. What is he, 6'7"?
6'6", 6'7".
6'6", 6'7". How many batted balls does that guy have?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's a lot that goes into it, man, that you could potentially get out of bringing that guy in. William Perry, let's get some of these questions. He says, maybe pay Reader and tell Hubbard to step up or get gone. If you can elaborate a little more on that, because I do want to address it. I want to make sure I address it correctly. William Perry. Oh, is that our guy?
William Perry. Yeah.
So, like, if you could just address that a little bit more, what you mean exactly by telling Hubbard to step up or get gone. Hubbard kick inside 3 tech. Hubbard has been on record not wanting to play inside. That's just not something he's too up for, from what I understand. So I don't know if that's just realistic as well, because you also don't want to. I think Sam Hubbard can play 3 tech in spots and kick him inside on pass rushing sets, but I don't think that's something where you want him there fully.
It's also, I don't think it's necessarily realistic. Like, we talked with obviously Duke Tobin at the combine and everything, that he's saying they truly believe that Sam Hubbard's injury had a lot to do with his performance last year. So if they're confident, to keep Sam Hubbard on the roster, and they're going to be confident to play him. And I don't know if I don't know how old Sam Hubbard's, around 30. Like, I don't know if at this age they're going to say, hey, let's switch you over from the edge that you've been playing all your career to interior defense lineman. He can, but I don't know if that's realistic to expect that even to be the answer, right? No DJ Reader, no Eric Armstead, Sam Hubbard, your starting defensive tackle. That's still not an answer. It's not.
I agree.
Reggie said, shout out Malik for breaking the DJ Reader news last night. Pedro said, should the Bengals trade T and get Mims and Newton? Still, you got to look at the offensive tackle, and we'll talk about offensive tackles a little bit more. But there's not a lot of teams that need starting offensive tackles. There's not. The Jets just traded for Morgan Moses from the Ravens, so they're another spot ahead of the Bengals that don't need an offensive tackle in the draft. And there's about 6, starting caliber potential franchise offensive tackles that are going to be selected in the top half of the first round of the NFL draft. So I still believe that the Bengals are going to have their pick, as I always say, pick of the litter at the offense tackle position. Kevin K said they'll get Murphy out there more. That'll keep Hubbard and Hendrickson safe, fresh completely. And that's where I think they're very confident in Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, and Miles Murphy, that they didn't need to go out and get a Danielle Hunter. They didn't need to go out and get an edge rusher, or else they would have made it a priority, Malik. They made safety a priority. They made, obviously, the tight end position priority. And hopefully we'll figure out this DJ Reader news out shortly.
Yeah, let's get to some of these questions, though, Daniel.
Yeah. So we got Big Jim Slade said, Malik, if we lose out on Reader, do you see the Bengals trading up in the first?
I mean, there's always an opportunity for them to trade up in the first, but what are they getting out of it? That's the biggest thing, right? It has to make sense for them. If I was a betting man, I would say the Bengals stay pat at 18.
Mm-hmm.
I think Bengals stay pat at 18. If anything, they would trade up in the later rounds. I don't think they trade up in the first. But I've been wrong before, so I just don't think they do.
And at the same time, I don't know if Byron Murphy or Jerzon Newton is worth trading up for, because then at that point you're just gonna bank on you're heading into the draft without a starting defense tackle. And Jerzon Newton and Byron Murphy can play DJ Reader's spot, but they're not these big, huge run-stopping defensive tackles. They're two different positions, right? DJ Reader is about 330, 340 pounds, 6 foot, 6'3". Jerzon Newton's about 300 pounds. Byron Murphy's about 280 to 290. They're more the pass rush specialists. That's what they're going to be, the BJ Hill role. They're going to be, you bring them in on second down, third down to rush the passer. They can do it in the run game, but two different positions. And in the draft, to trade up, there's got to be an extreme level of value. And I don't see them personally. I don't see them going up to trade up for a defensive tackle when you're going to have offensive tackles there. And Byron Murphy and Jerzon Newton might be there at pick number 19. So we got a question from Malcolm. He said, is there a possibility that the Bengals know that DJ Reader has issues with his physical and they expect him not to pass the Detroit physical?
I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's that, man. I think they want DJ Reader back. I think it's coming strictly down to the money, and that's been echoed to me several times. It's about, a guy, he wants to be here. The Bengals want him here, but it's working out the financial aspect of it. I don't know what the Bengals offer necessarily was to DJ Reader, but I get the sense it wasn't as enticing as the Detroit Lions from a committal standpoint. That could be yearly, that could be guaranteed money. I have a feeling it's probably a little bit of both. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's one of those things where you want to feel valued, you want to feel appreciated, and as much as you want to stay at a place, it takes two to tango.
And it's that I don't know if that would necessarily be the smartest thing for the Bengals, right? To bank on, hey, he's going to go to Detroit and fail physical, and we'll have him. I don't know if that's necessarily how they would want to do business, to hope that DJ Reader, because that's a guess at the end of the day. You're not certain on that. We got a question. Trevor Mode, he's asking about the interior offensive line for the Bengals. He said, any looks on the interior offensive line in free agency like Connor Williams?
I haven't heard of any of that. But I do want to touch on one of the questions here. Somebody asked about the where's it at, man? They asked about the offensive tackle. Do you see it, Daniel?
Which one was it? It was like about Becton?
No, they just asked about the offensive tackle. What's going on with the offensive right tackle? Christopher Handmaker says. So I'll explain it to you guys like this: what's going on and why there's been such little movement on the offensive line. Remember last year, everybody clamored and they said, this is the richest tight end class. You can get a tight end in the draft. You can get a tight end in the draft. You can get a tight end in the draft. So what happened was everybody's value from the tight end that were on the open market went down drastically. Everybody's value went down, and teams weren't willing to throw money at a bunch of tight ends because they're like, okay, we can just get a guy in the draft. This exact same thing is basically happening with the right tackle, the tackle spot. They're saying that this is the deepest tackle class, right? And you can get a guy in the second round, you can get a guy in the first round. Sometimes that type of stuff is overblown. But the sense I get around the league is a lot of people are high on this offensive tackle class. So that being said, why spend money on a Trent Brown, a Jonah Williams, whoever, um, when you can grab a guy in the NFL draft this year? So I think you might see some of these guys either take bargain bin deals, 1-year deals, lesser amounts, and then re-enter the free agency class next year, or you might see guys signing for a lot lower than anticipated. Jonah Williams back in Cincinnati is a possibility. He's also not a possibility. Who knows, right? But these guys, the tackle market in free agency isn't shaping up the way people think. Like Tyron Smith, people are talking about him. He might find his way back with the Dallas Cowboys. You consider his injury history. You consider how the Dallas Cowboys allowed him to practice 1 day a week. What other team is willing to take that on when you can grab a young guy at the tackle spot and grow with them versus grabbing a veteran? Because any of these guys that you get right now, and I mentioned this before, any of these guys you grab right now, you're going to be asking questions about. Not saying that you won't be asking the same questions about a draft pick, but essentially it's cheaper, right? It's cheaper than spending and splurging on a guy who has either injury histories, motivation concerns, or just a guy maybe just doesn't want to play a certain position. So it's real. It's real. The tackle market is not shaping up the way people thought. Like if Jonah was a tackle, was a free agent last year, he would have probably cashed in. This year, I don't know.
And just when you discuss, Jonah Williams, people are talking about him as, oh, for sure, top tackle on the market. He's a franchise tackle. Teams are going to sign him because if a team really wanted him truly either to be their for sure starting offensive tackle, or, they would have already signed him. It's day 3, Malik, and he is the best offensive tackle on the free agent market. So I'm with you. I think there is a possibility that he comes back and signs. And that's the 2 questions the Bengals have to ask themselves. Interior offensive line, people asking Connor Williams. I don't know if that's a priority for the Bengals. They got their starters. They can get depth. It's a good interior offensive lineman class in the NFL draft. It's more so it's Jonah Williams and DJ Reader and figure out those 2 positions, because the offense tackle, you still got Mekhi Becton out there. You still got some other offense tackles, some stopgap offense tackles, if you will. But we'll see what happens with Jonah Williams. Like I said, it's already day 3 and he has not been signed. Vanguard's asking, what's DJ's price or value? What do you think he's going to command? How much you think?
I have no idea. That's the thing about free agency. Nobody knows. Nobody who saw Calvin Ridley getting. Remember who saw the Titans going after Calvin Ridley, and then who you saw Calvin Ridley signing for $92 million? Who saw that? Right, the guy coming off of a suspension year who had a okay season. Who saw that? Right. So this is free agency. You never know what teams might be throwing at these guys. Sometimes teams have to overpay to get a guy that they really want. That's the art of free agency.
Yeah, and people are asking if Jonah Williams is re-signed. This question from Brian. He said, if Jonah's re-signed to an under-market deal and the Bengals take a right tackle, would Jonah Williams kick inside to a guard?
Hey, listen, I don't know what the Bengals would do. I know what I could do. You guys are asking great questions.
Yeah.
But again, it has to make sense. For me, I'm putting out the best starting 5 offensive line. Bengals are weird though. They'll say, I don't want to do this because I don't want to disrupt Cordell Volson's growth. And for me, you should always try to put out the best offensive line you can put out there. So I don't know if I see that, but it's a good question.
Very good question. William Perry said, are you good with the past drafts on offensive line? I don't obviously I'm sure that weighs in on your decision, but at the end of the day, you can't take away drafting potential franchise tackle because of how you drafted. How would you, Malik, because the Bengals haven't been great at drafting offensive line, would that be a concern of yours to draft an offensive tackle versus a guy like Jonah?
That's always going to be a concern of mine. I just don't want them to put themselves in a position where they have to pigeonhole themselves, because suppose there is, like Daniel, you've been hammering this cornerback thing over and over again, right? But suppose that there is a guy that's sitting out there in the draft that you really like, but you're like, oh damn, remember we need to grab a tackle, so listen, I've always been a fan of addressing your needs in free agency and drafting for the future. That's what I've always been a fan of. I've never been a fan of just picking up just drafting a guy because you need him, whatever the case may be. So I don't know. I wouldn't listen. You could say, oh, this team has been bad at drafting this position. Does that mean you just avoid the position as a whole in the first round? No, you don't do that, right? Who could have expected, some of these draft picks to pan out the way that they have? Like they thought that they were the smartest cookies in the bunch. They drafted Cedric Awuzie. They drafted Jake Fisher. They drafted Jonah Williams. Now, they didn't all pan out. That's okay. Whatever, it happens. But if an obvious guy is sitting there at 18 that you have ranked high on your board, has nothing to do about a need. You pick him, all right? Yeah. If I know Daniel wasn't the biggest Fuaga guy, now he's come around to him. Fuaga sitting there, sure, you draft him if he's sitting there at 18. You do that. But my thing is, if you answer enough of the questions you have in free agency, you don't put yourself in a bind during the draft. It's really just that simple. And you have the money to spend. It's just about, hey, do you want to be frugal with your money? If you're not frugal with your money, the Bengals can still correct some of these needs. At some point, you're going to have to draft, let's just say it, a tight end of the future.
Yep.
Right? Because everybody wants to say. At some point, you're going to have to draft a defensive tackle. At some point, you're going to have to draft an offensive lineman. At some point, you're going to. Crap. If Jackson Power Johnson is sitting there at 18, that's a conversation you have. If you answer enough questions, if it's really just simple, if you answer enough questions in the free agency process, the draft becomes a lot simpler for you.
Yep.
It does. It does. It doesn't mean that you're squared away and you love where you're at and you love the position your team is in. It just means, okay, you've answered enough questions, meaning we're okay going into the draft with what we have. If the Bengals don't draft a tight end in the draft, they're okay with what they have right now because they picked up Mike Gesicki. If the Bengals go into the draft, let's say they pick up an Eric Armstead and a Tyler Tart, and they don't get a defensive tackle in the first round, they're okay because they addressed it. The same thing with the right tackle position. You pick up, now that position might be a little more pressing depending on who you go after.
Yeah.
But this is a good thing. The longer these guys sit out here, it makes life easier for you for when you go to negotiate with them. Mekhi Becton's still sitting out there. Jonah Williams still sitting out there. Trent Brown still sitting out there. They're still sitting out there. Mm-hmm. And so if those guys are still sitting out there, I can tell you what this means, guys. Most NFL teams are like this. They're like that because they're saying, we're going to draft a tackle with our first pick in the top 15 picks. I think offensive tackles are going to fly off the board, which is why if you're the Bengals, you can't be like, hey, we're going to stand pat. We believe we're going to grab a guy in the draft at 18. You can grab a guy at 18, but are you willing to grab a guy that you want? Because there's a difference of grabbing Billy Price and grabbing Frank Ragnow, who got picked 2 picks or a pick before you. But think about it. If you never traded that pick when you thought you're trying to outsmart everybody and grab Cordy Glenn, Frank Ragnow's a Bengal. Hell, Derwin James might be a Bengal. Hell, the Bengals could have had Derwin James and Jesse Bates. The draft is really a crapshoot. But if I'm the Bengals, and we don't trade unless we're winning, right? No, seriously. If I'm the Bengals, I'm looking at this free agency class and I'm saying, in the words of Alex Pajeda, holy shit. I'm saying, oh my God, no team is signing any of these tackles? Something fishy is going on. And I don't like it. If I'm the Bengals, I'm saying, holy crap, this means teams are probably going to draft offensive tackles. So guess what? We're going to call up some of these free agent offensive tackles just to cover our ass.
Yep.
If I'm the Bengals, you have to think ahead. You can't be like, oh, well, we have the 18th pick. We're going to grab one of our guys. We might not grab the guy, but we're going to grab one guy. Serious. Because these teams are telling you what their hand is. Guys, these teams are telling you what they're planning to do. No, you know how many teams need offensive tackle in the league? And consider it. It's silent. There's no movement going on. Nobody's beating down any of these offensive tackles' doors. So if nobody's beating down any of these offensive tackles' doors, what is that telling you? What is it telling you? As much as and as high as everybody is on the defensive tackle class, the fact that people threw buku money at this interior defensive line free agency class, what is that telling you? The fact that people threw ridiculous money at their position, everybody assumed nobody's going to pay for because you can just pick up a running back at any point in time. What does that tell you people think about this running back class? The NFL is very simple, guys. It's very simple. It starts in Indy. You go through waves. You start to figure out what is going to be the position that's going to command in free agency. What is the position? How does the league view said position in the draft? Because typically how the league, believes said position in the draft is, that'll determine what happens in free agency. Mm-hmm. And if you're not willing to be that aggressive team and say, you know what, I'm going to trade up, I'm going to move to grab the guy that I want, then what are you doing? You better grab a guy in free agency. You better. Because if you don't, again, this is a offensive line needy league. Do the Bengals really think 17 teams are going to pass on some of the top offensive linemen in this class and say, oh, we know Cincinnati, who has an elite quarterback, who has an elite receiving core, who literally lives in the playoffs outside of this year when Joe Burrow got hurt. Oh, let's let him get a tackle. It'll be fine. It's okay. Do you think that's what's going to happen? Do they think that's what's going to happen? Do they think that 5, 6 offensive tackles aren't going to come off the board before 18? Let's bet. I'm a betting man. Let's bet on it. Let's do it. So with that logic, unless you're planning on, hey, let's trade up for a guy, you better get active. You better do something. You better do something. Being honest about it. You better do something. You got to do something. But the league is telling you what's going to happen in the draft week 1 of free agency. They're telling you already. Teams still might sign people, but guess what? If it was that much of a need and that much that we want a guy, guess what? The first free agent that came off the board, first couple of free agents would have been running backs, but offensive tackles. But they know what we know. This offensive tackle class is deep. So we can get a younger guy for cheap and not have to pay a ridiculous amount of money for him. Let these veterans sit. Sure, we'll be fine. You know when that veteran offensive tackle market will pick back up, guys? After the draft. After the draft. And that's when their value will shoot back up. It goes through ebbs and flows. Right now, you're looking kind of low because everybody knows it's a deep free agency. It's a deep draft class. All right, so the draft comes along. Everybody drafts their guys, right? And then what happens? It goes back up. It goes back up. That's what happens. It's almost like trying to buy a house. It's almost trying to buy a house. You're going to buy a house when it's expensive? Or are you going to try to buy a house when you can get it at a good deal? Same thing with a car. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
No.
What are your thoughts, Daniel? So I went off on a long tangent.
No, you're right.
That's literally how this thing works.
You're right. And I think this is, once again, if you guys are watching this, we appreciate it. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe. Just being honest, like that is the exact example of how the NFL works. I think you worded that perfectly, right? You look at last year's offensive tackle class in free agency. Mike McGlinchey got 18 million. Orlando Brown, got 16 million. Jawan Taylor got 20 million. They got paid quick. They got paid within the first 2 days. And the NFL is showing you that right now, none of these offensive tackles are off the board. Jonah Williams is the best one, not off the board. Mekhi Becton, not off the board. So yes, I agree with you. That shows what the NFL thinks. And if you're the Bengals, you have to cover your ass. You have to. Because who's to say that Fuaga, Olufashanu, Mims, all 4 of those guys aren't off the board by pick number 18. Who's to say? They might be. They probably will be. So if you're the Bengals, you believe you'll get one of the offensive tackles, that's fine. You still have to cover your ass and get a Mekhi Becton, get somebody that's going to be starting at the right tackle position before the draft. Because if you pigeonhole yourself, then you're not going to be in a spot where you're able to take these other talents at defensive tackle, at cornerback.
And I want to address, what are you talking about, DJ? You're my guy, but I'm feeling pressure or what? I ain't in the front office. They still are going to add a tackle at some point. They still are going to add interior defensive line at some point. It's day one of the free agency's open. It's legal tampering period. You know what happens during legal tampering period? The people you want really, really bad, you throw a ridiculous amount of money at. Those teams that are rebuilding, trying to get players to come here. Remember, we were that team a couple years ago. They throw a ridiculous amount of money at some of these free agents and say, "Hey, come, please, come for us. Hey, we'll give you this amount of money." That's what happens during free agency. Been doing this a long time. This is what happens every single year. People panic. People get upset. People are like, "Oh my God, is our team going to pick up this guy, pick up that guy?" And you pick them up. You see all the deals go through, and then guess what? Now we're about to enter the second wave. It's crazy. The day free agency opens up is when the second wave happens. I didn't mean to make you guys panic at all. I'm just being honest. Hey, listen, the Bengals have to be smart about this thing. They put all their eggs in, hey, let's get DJ Reader back. Oh, DJ looked like he had us to Detroit. All right, so what are you going to do now? What are you going to do? Like, and something I also want to say as well. Something else I also want to say. A lot of these deals you guys seeing people signing right now, I promise you, at least 5 of them next year during this time, such and such has restructured their contract. Such and such has restructured their contract. Such and such has agreed to a new deal to lower his cap hit. Because teams get crazy. One thing I always appreciate about the Bengals front office, they're very smart about the way they structure their contracts. It may cause people to call them being cheap, but the way that they structure their contracts, they are efficient and smart about it, and it gives them a chance to back out, which is why they front load their contracts in year one. Which is why they give the guaranteed money in year one, because they don't want to be guaranteeing money in year 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that way it's harder to, that's how you find yourself in cap hell. That's why you find yourself like the Chargers, and you have to cut players and you have to say, hey, please take my veteran that we signed to $100 million. Like, that's how you find yourself like as some of these other teams. The Bengals don't find themselves because the Bengals, it's not because they're cheap. They're smart.
Yes.
They're smart. And I'm not saying that everybody else is dumb, but sometimes people get so carried away with, hey, let me throw this money at this guy. Let me throw some money at this guy. Let me just do that. And yes, Michael Jadon, they might be cheap to an extent. But what I'm saying is they're also, maybe cheap is the wrong word. They're not careless. They're not reckless spenders.
Yes. I
promise you, I will bet everything Robert Hunt's contract will be restructured next year. I guarantee you he will be asked to take he signed for $100 million and $85 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
A guard. I guarantee you.
Yeah.
I guarantee you his contract will be restructured next year. They're regretting that deal right now. They are. But what's done is done. It's what happens. Teams will go crazy. Teams will spend a ridiculous amount of money at guys. It's all, don't you guys think it's a little embarrassing? Let's talk about it.
Yep.
If you're a team and you say, hey, we're going to go after a guy, we're going to sign him. We sign him. We make a big free agency spot. Oh, blah, 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 sign this guy. Right? And then next year you have to go back to that same player. It's basically like saying we're broke. I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It's like basically saying we're broke. Mm-hmm. You're going back to said player that you agreed and you said, hey, we're going to sign you for X amount of money. This is what we're going to give you. And that player is over the moon. Of course, Robert Hunt signed with the Panthers. Ain't nobody else was going to give him that. Mm-hmm. But then you go back to that player like, hey, excuse me, sir. Will you take a pay cut for us? Right? I mean, yeah. Think about you don't want to be in that spot.
And it's always the teams that aren't successful. It's always the teams that have a lot of money to spend in free agency. It's always the ones that, they're not contenders. And you're right. They're the new head coaches. They're the new GMs. They're the new ownerships that are trying to make splashes year one. So I'm with you. And I think when you look at the Bengals, free agency class so far, it's been good. It's been smart. Very smart. 1 to 2 year deals. Geno Stone, 2-year deals that fills a need. Mike Gesicki, 1-year deal that fills a need for now and gives you potential. Drew Sample, screw it. that helps your tight end room. You could head into the draft without a major need at tight end because you got Sample and Mike Gesicki. They're being smart. And I promise you guys, look at every other team at the NFL right now. Go look through the rosters. Look at the Titans. Look at the Jaguars. Look at the Commanders. Look at the Bears. All these other teams have 5, 6 needs. The Bengals don't have a ton of needs on their roster. They got the most important position figured out, the quarterback. They have a star weapon at wide receiver. They have the two-headed, running back committee right now that can head into the draft and be confident in it. You got your cornerback room to discuss the cornerbacks. I know a lot of people want Fulton. A lot of people want Kendall Fuller. Let me just read you guys some of these names that are going to be available. The Bengals can live with a veteran cornerback after day 3. After day 4, you got Adoree Jackson still there. You got Xavier Howard. You got Stephon Gilmore. You got Tre'Davious White. You have so many veteran cornerbacks that I promise you guys, the Bengals defense, Lou Anarumo, will be fine with signing on day 4, day 5. So when I look at this cornerback class, especially, you're going to have these guys like an Eli Apple that you can sign to back up Cam Taylor-Britt, back up DJ Turner. The cornerback class is not a concern right now. Your cornerback depth is not a concern because of the depth of free agents. There's at least 8 guys, CJ Henderson, Rock Ya-Sin. There's veterans that may not be the greatest. They may not be, have the greatest history, but guys that Lou Anarumo and the defense will be able to say, okay, I can plug this guy here. He's a veteran. We can pay him a couple $1 million at the end of free agency on day 4, on day 5. So if I'm looking at the Bengals cornerbacks, I'm not concerned. And I'm not saying, okay, I need to go draft one. I need to sign one right now. The cornerbacks are fine. You're going to get a veteran in day 4, day 5, and we're going to be looking at it and say, okay, they can back up the 2 starting cornerbacks. So I'm very confident with the Bengals cornerbacks.
Daniel's cooking. Daniel's cooking. I just want to give him credit, man. He's been cooking since most of this free agency. But Mike Jonah, I hear you, my man. We don't agree on a lot of things, and you're my guy, man. You always support the show. Do me a favor. We're going to keep rambling on and talking about this. You seem very frustrated. You're like, I'm tired of calling them smart. We're trying to be like the Ravens. We're trying to be like the Chiefs. Let me just remind you, the Ravens haven't won anything. Let's start there. They haven't won anything. Joe Burrow has more playoff victories than the Ravens. But what are you so pent up? What are you so angry about? What is it that you want to see the Bengals do that is a needle mover for you? I'm all for discussion. This is a show for the people, right? I might be NFL Insider and all that crap like that, but I like talking with you guys. I like having discussions. I like breaking it all down. Throw some questions in the comment section. Let's get to them. Could be Bengals related, cannot be Bengals related. But for you, Michael John, tell me, what is it that you want to see the Bengals do right now that you feel like they're not doing? You want them to go crazy, spend money? Okay, well, break it down for me. If they're spending that, tell me what you want them to spend. Tell me what you want them to spend. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about why. Because remember, put your GM cap on, Mike. You got Jamar Chase coming down the pipeline with that money.
Yes.
Put your GM cap on, Mike. Before you know it, Cam Taylor-Britt's going to be a free agent. Put your GM cap on, Mike. Before you know it, DJ Turner's going to come up. Put your GM cap on, okay? Let's have this discussion. I'm all for it. Daniel, continue.
Yeah, just going off of that, people want to discuss, the money in Bengals being frugal, and maybe in the past they haven't, went out and made these big splash signings. But Orlando Brown Jr. should have told you last year, okay, they're willing to go out and make these big splash signings.
Sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off.
You're good.
He commented. I just want to get to him in real time while he's commenting. Yes. I'm not cutting you off, brother.
Yes.
Michael John says, I need a defensive tackle not named BJ Hill, Jack Carter. You have the money. Go out, make it happen. Okay, Mike, but tell me who you want and tell me what you're willing to give them. Let's talk about that. Because right now, the defensive tackles on the market, DJ Reader, Eric Armstead, Tyler Tart. All right, who else? Who else do you want them to do? Is it a trade? Like, let's go into detail. Let's have this discourse. You might not be on the show, but God damn it, you are on the show right now. Yep. So let's talk about it. Because I want to talk. I want to have this discussion. What do you want the Bengals to do exactly? We have all the time. We ain't going nowhere. We're live right now from the First Star Logistics Studio, and we're keeping this thing going. The only thing I want you guys to do is give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But we have over 500 people in the chat. Tell me what you want the Bengals to sign said defensive tackle for. Could be via trade, could be via free agency. Tell me what you want them to sign, for. I wanted you to go in detail and tell me, let's say, what do they have, Marissa, right now left in cap? 35, 36 million, something like that? All right. What is it that you want them to do? Will Herman, let's answer your question. DJ Reader's taking a visit with the Detroit Lions. There's no update. As I reported last night, that is where he is going. It looks like the Lions want to get a deal done with him. So the floor is yours, Mike. Let's talk about it. Daniel.
Yeah, Pete Crawley said the floor is yours, Mike. That's funny. It is, Mike. And just to add on to this, like, I understand, Mike, where you're coming from, right? The Bengals need to go out and sign a defense tackle. Yes. They've also got to be smart, but it's either DJ Reed or Eric Armstead. And I'm with you. I think we're disagreeing more than we disagree, Mike. Like, you've got to be smart with it. And for me personally, I'm paying DJ I'd pay him around 15 million. And what you got? What?
You can read the comment. He commented. He wants Jonathan Allen. He said he wants Jonathan Allen. What's Marissa? Pull it up for me right now. What is Jonathan Allen making? No, it's okay, Mike. It's all right, my man. Dad of the year, my guy. I appreciate you, bro. I really do. I love talking with y'all. I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. But like, let's talk about it. What is Jonathan Allen making right now? What would the Bengals be taking on if they were to trade for a guy like Jonathan Allen? If that's a guy that you want and just to add and be frank with you, I don't think the Commanders would be willing to move on from that guy.
No.
Right? They got a new coach in there.
If they haven't got rid of him yet, they already got rid of Sweat.
And being a defensive guy, I'm sorry, I just don't think Dan Quinn would be willing to move him. But Marissa's smiling. Tell me, what is he making?
So he signed a 4-year, $72 million contract back in 2021.
He signed a 4-year?
Yeah.
What is it? What is it?
Back in
How much was it?
72 million.
72 million. How much was guaranteed?
All I know is that between this season and the next season of the contract that was still to be paid out, it's 21 million this upcoming season.
21 million this year he'd be getting paid.
23 next season.
And 23 million. So 23 and 21 million all if you were to make a trade for a guy like Jonathan Allen, 23 million off the book. So that's 23 million you are already off the cap next year. Remember, you still have to pay Jamar Chase, who's probably going to command $30 million a year. That's not even talking about what the guarantees might be. And Joe Burrow's contract kicks in when?
I believe the following season.
Next year?
Yeah.
Next year, right? So, and Reader is the backup option, 3 years, 16 million a year for DJ Reader. That is now we don't know what the Lions are necessarily offering, but one has to imagine if the Bengals have let it gotten this far, right? I consider DJ Reader maybe not on, a realistic option, honestly, unless he has a change of heart and he says, hey, unless the Lions say we don't want it, we want to rescind the offer. Will Herman, my guy from TWSN, says Johnny Newton over DJ Reader. Well, I wouldn't say that right yet. How can you put a rookie who has yet to prove anything in the National Football League over DJ Reader, who's been a proven commodity, who's truly one of the best run stuffers in football?
And just add on to that, like we had this discussion before too. You're not like let's say the Bengals, let's say that they believe Jerzon Newton can be a better player than DJ Reader. You're not going to head into the draft and have that be your assumption of, okay, Jerzon Newton is there, or we're going to do whatever it takes to go out and get Jerzon Newton because we believe he's better than DJ Reader.
Well, Senator God, you said, guys, please don't paint me as the bad guy. I'm pretty much just explaining to you what I hear, what I talk, people that I talk to. You said, so basically what you're saying is the Bengals, aren't not going to get anyone that will help them. Basically say, screw it, and we will get retreads and backups. Okay, cool. Listen, as it was said to me directly, we're looking to recreate BJ Hill, Larry Ogunjobi. Whatever you consider it, that is what you consider it. I don't consider it that. I thought BJ Hill, Larry Ogunjobi were very good assets. They've maintained that they wanted to keep DJ Reader. I ain't saying anything. If it was up to me, this wouldn't even have been a discussion. It wouldn't have even gotten to this point. It would have been something that I would have already fixed before it got to this point. So I ain't saying nothing. I would have already made a deal. I would have already made something happen. I would have not let it get this far. If you weren't sold on DJ Reader, I would have went to next option. They didn't do that. Javon Kinlaw signed for $7.2 million for 1 year. Yeah, there were other options and other things that I would have done. That's all I'm saying. So I don't want you to take it as I'm saying one thing versus the other. I ain't saying nothing. Because if I was a GM, I think my aggression would be a little bit more different, to be quite honest with you. But Danny, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, well, Michael Jr. said, listen, we disagree constantly, Malik, but I get it. You're professional in this world, blah, blah, blah. He said, it's been this way with the Bengals for a very long time, and it's old.
Agreed. Yeah. I agree. I just think their version of going in is different from other people because I think they're trying to be pragmatic and smart about how are we going to spend our money going forward? Because you already know, you have to already go into with the mentality. Jamar Chase is going to look for 30+ million a year. You have to already off rip have to go into it with that mentality.
Yep.
You have to. And that's playing it cool. This, obviously, the cap's going to go up, yada, yada, yada. We know they like to spend, they don't like to spend up to the cap. They'll spend respectfully, but then you still have to have 10 million, allocated, obviously, to the rookies incoming. So you have to be smart about how you spend your money, guys. Because then we'll be sitting up there saying, oh, well, why don't they just restructure this contract or recreate this? That's all I'm saying. To me, the easiest way out of all this crap is trading T. Higgins. Getting $21 million off the book.
And that's a realistic discussion you have to have, because when you look at the Bengals cap, you make a great point, because Jamar Chase, like, people say, all right, what are they going to do with that money? What are they gearing up for? You're probably gearing up to pay Jamar Chase as well. So you got Jamar Chase, you got Joe Burrow, and I'm with you, man. I
love this discussion with y'all. I hope y'all know none of this is personal at all. I love whether it's disagreeing. I love talking with y'all. Center guy, we're agreeing. He said the bottom line is their way doesn't win championships ever, period. It doesn't win Super Bowls. They came close to winning a Super Bowl. So, I agree with you. Their way hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. And maybe this way does. Who knows? But I can assure you, I don't know outside of the Rams, who splurged and traded first-round capital, I don't know if a team blowing up all their draft assets and money, their financial commitment to win now has really panned out for anybody but the Rams.
No, and it really hasn't. You look at the Chiefs, for example, right? Even the Chiefs, they got rid of a lot of their offensive talent. They were running with scraps at the wide receiver position. They were. And respectfully, when you look at the Bengals roster right now, we got to discuss defensive tackle and offensive tackle, but they are a Super Bowl contending roster right now. They are. And as much as we want to say, it hasn't won it. Of course it hasn't. But you just look at the roster compared to other teams' rosters. This team can win a Super Bowl. They were close. Look at the teams that were even close last year. The Ravens. Look at the Bills. You can say the Bengals have close to a better roster than the Bills. You can look and say the Bengals have close to a better roster than the Ravens. You got to at least be confident that, one, you got the quarterback, you got the wide receiver, and now it's about filling two main positions, defensive tackle and offensive tackle, and then we'll figure it out. But there's a lot more that needs to be.
And one thing I want to touch on as well, guys, girls, everybody. I just want to say this. We're looking at other teams' rosters and we're saying they look nice, and I agree the Texans roster look nice. But damn, don't you think teams are looking at the Bengals roster saying that roster looks nice too? Yes. I just think that we're literally underselling some of our guys as well. There are teams out there that are saying, damn, the Bengals have a really good roster too, man. Maybe that's why the Bengals don't have to splurge. We were that team that had to splurge. We were that team that had to go and overpay and try to get Trey Hendrickson and get DJ Reader and beat out the Broncos and so on and so forth. And we were that team. We had to do that. Now you have to draft smart, right? We don't know what the Dax Hill pick is going to look like. We don't know what the Miles Murphy pick is going to look like. But those could wind up being franchise. I'll be very careful.
Let me just add on something too. You can look at other teams' rosters and you can compare. I get that. Look at the 49ers roster. You can say, damn right, that's better than the Bengals. Look at the quarterback. And that this is something you're going to have to live and die by the Chiefs. They're going to live and die by Patrick Mahomes, and they're willing to let go. They let go of freaking Tyreek Hill because of their quarterback, because of what they're paying their quarterback, and they trusted Patrick Mahomes. And with Joe Burrow and the Bengals, damn right, I'm confident in Joe Burrow. You better be confident in Joe Burrow. And yes, you're not going to have the luxury of having these other rosters, maybe like the 49ers. I think that's the perfect example. They have Christian McCaffrey. They have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. They worked on their interior defensive line. They have Nick Bosa. They splurge everywhere. But look at the quarterback. Brock Purdy's making $1 million. Joe Burrow's probably, I don't even know what the number is, but he's making a lot of money. So,
man, we got a heartfelt comment in here, right, by Mike, man. Malik, just hope you see, though, I sincerely appreciate what you do, man, and what you do for us fans, even if I come across as no, you don't. I appreciate y'all too. Remember, understand, no matter how big or how small I am in this industry, in this game, I am nothing without you guys. You guys were the first fan base that took a chance on me when I started breaking news. Some people didn't believe in me. Some people thought I was a fraud, the whole 9 yards. But I appreciate the support that y'all give me, my crew, the First Star logistics team, everybody. I really do appreciate you guys. So just know it's all love from me too. I really genuinely Somebody said I want more white players.
That's crazy.
I really appreciate all the love that you guys give us on a regular basis. Seriously, man. I love it. I love it. I appreciate it. I love doing State of the Jungle. I love doing the sit down with Malik Wright. And just hope y'all know, man, I'm a Swiss Army knife, man. I do betting. We talk about NFL, NBA, UFC, the whole 9 yards, betting pick. Like, we do so much, man. And we're just scratching the surface. We've got a lot of big stuff playing with First Star Logistics this upcoming year and so on and so forth. But Mike, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, man, it was really been cool to kind of get back to my roots, man, and breaking some news this year, man, because I kind of fell back a little bit. So appreciate y'all. Will Herman, there's no update on T. Higgins right now. There's no update on T. Higgins. No update on T. Higgins. There's nothing there. Bengals still want to keep T. Higgins. His agent can throw a temper tantrum and all he wants and all that kind of stuff like that. But unless somebody is coming to blow the doors off of the Bengals, I don't even see remotely where a trade comes close to making that happen. Maybe it does happen. But again, in a receiver-rich draft class, you got to ask how likely is that? So I appreciate y'all, seriously. And I appreciate y'all spending all this time with us. We still got some time to go. We're still going to be talking a little bit more with you guys here. But man, this is fun. Yeah. I hope you guys don't get tired of me talking, because I don't get tired of talking to you guys. So
no, we appreciate it, man. Yeah. We really do. And we got a lot of questions in here. Our guy Jalen Prescott saying, look at my comments. He said, this trade for T, like for the 34th overall pick. Yeah, if we're discussing a T. Higgins trade, let's talk about Derrick Brown first off. Derrick Brown has 1 more year left on his contract. He's making about $11 million. He's gonna make a lot of money. He's gonna make 25.
Oh yeah, he's deserving of it too.
And that's the conversation that it sounds nice. I would love, trade T. Higgins for Derrick Brown. You get an interior defense lineman.
They just traded for Deontay Johnson, man, and that's but you do the more talent Bryce Young has around him. So yeah, like for me, I'm all for that. Like, but you got to understand something. The Bengals really view T. Higgins richly, right?
Yes.
So if a team calls the Bengals, what are you? That's why I scoffed at the report the other day. When I laughed and I said, somebody said, oh, the Bengals should trade the 18th overall pick, next year's first rounder, T. Higgins, and this year's second round pick for Justin Jefferson. I laughed. I said, in what world have you seen the Bengals trade their first round pick? That's not a pick swap. And let alone another first round pick. Oh, by the way, and a second round pick. When have you ever seen them do that? When are they going to do that? So if the Bengals are doing that, because they already view T. Higgins in the highest regard. So if you're trading for T. Higgins, you better be willing to offer a premium player and a premium pick. Let's just start there. Mm-hmm. A second round pick is a premium pick. Yes. A premium player, sure, we can throw Derrick Brown in there as a premium. I think that makes sense. I think it makes sense. But you're never going to fleece the Bengals in a trade. You're never. Even the Joe Mixon trade, they still got something out of it, a 7th round pick. Yeah. They still got something out of it. There was a guy that they were like, oh, we were going to cut. We were going to release at one point in time. Oh, well, we got something out of it. Oh, here's the best part. They're on the hook for the money now. And here's the best part. The way we structured our contract to keep a guy like Joe Mixon in the fold, we promised him, you're going to see the life of that contract. Now we can fulfill that promise because we traded you to the Texans, and now they're going to finish paying you out that salary. So all good. No bad blood. Joe Mixon got paid his money. He's on a team where he can produce as a starting running back. All fair in love and war. Like, that's where the Bengals view it. That's how they view this thing, man. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where you're never going to outsmart or try and do that, because they are truly, the stigma around the league is the hardest team to trade with in the National Football League. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and it may be a good thing for us to predict, okay, T. Higgins, this is, what they would want. And yes, they do regard him highly, but that's not like, just because they regard him highly doesn't mean that they are for sure going to pay him. It's a disagreement between the Bengals and their agent, mm-hmm. David Mogetta. And I think it's just that simple. And we'll see. We discuss this. Like, I personally, you know what you can do with $21 million with the Bengals, man. And that's,
what's crazy? I genuinely believe if T. Higgins didn't switch agencies, what was it, last year and a half ago, something like that?
Let me check.
He switched agencies to Dave Mogetta. He wasn't always with them. But had he not done that, I believe he would have a deal done with the Bengals already. It's just like, it's not T guys, it's what they do. Yeah. Like, it's just what athletes first does, what Dave Mogetta does. They're not going to settle. They're going to always try to get the best for their clients. And it is what it is. Let's see. What made them make the decision to move on from Mixon? Also, I think it was I think it was a multitude of things. It was a lot of it, I would say, is the production. Some of it is the production, right? You want to try to get more, trying to get it back that sort of fits what you're trying to do a little bit more. But the money definitely played a part as well. Getting younger ish at the position. So it was a multitude of things as to why they moved on from him. But needless to say, Joe Mixon did great when he was here. Didn't you feel like that with Jesse as well? What is he saying? I'm not exactly sure.
But Jesse, probably the whole thing with the contract. T. Higgins, Jesse Bates, like you felt like he's a good player, I'm sure, but the money.
No, so I actually thought Jesse Bates had a more realistic, had a real shot at coming back to Cincinnati, and it was because of the need at the free safety position. But when they drafted Dax Hill, that all pretty much put a damper on those plans. But remember, they had already franchise tagged Jesse Bates at that point, right? So it was already like, you're okay. It was very similar to what they did with Andrew Whitworth and Cedric Wade. Hey, we're going to draft your replacement. Hopefully they learn. Hopefully they're ready, and then we'll go with them just off the simple fact that we drafted them and we're ready to take the next step. So I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah. Couple questions. Sway said, "Do you think Boyd is going to be a Steeler?" I think it makes the most sense. I mean, you talked about this early last year, right? That would be a potential fit. He's from Pittsburgh, and I just challenge you guys, go look at the depth chart of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Go look at the wide receivers. I believe they have one real starting caliber wide receiver under contract, and that is George Pickens. They need wide receivers. And Tyler Boyd, it seems like a fit. He's played him multiple times every single year for his entire career with Cincinnati Bengals. I think it'd be a good fit. And that's something where he could potentially thrive. Russell Wilson be his little safety blanket. That could be good. Malik from Mr. Ohio said, "Malik, just want to say thank you for being you and true to the team and us fans. We appreciate you more than you know."
Man, I appreciate y'all too, man. It's been a crazy ride. I look forward to the day Cincinnati can hoist up a Lombardi trophy and we can all celebrate together. I really do.
Yeah, we got a question from Rage Al Ghul, and also I believe Cade had a question about the edge rushers. I feel like the Bengals are showing their hand in what they believe. They believe in Trey Henderson. They believe in Sam Hubbard, and they believe in Miles Murphy.
Oh, you could say it as well. They do. You could say that.
What?
They do believe in Joseph Ossai.
And Joseph Ossai.
They really believe that Joseph Ossai is going to reach another level this year because this is the first year he wasn't injured. So,
and it's not a crazy thing to say that Joseph Ossai can't be a good rotational piece. He definitely can. And when you look at what is the alternative, right? Are you going to go out and sign a guy? Probably not. Are you going to go out and draft a Jared Verse? That would be great. But they trust in at least giving Miles Murphy a chance. Like, look, they give Dax Hill a chance, right? They were not going to last year go into it with two starting safeties in Von Bell and Jesse Bates without giving their first round pick Dax Hill a chance. They're going to give Miles Murphy a chance. Even if it's just this 1 year to be a starting edge rusher, they are going to give him a chance, and he's going to have a chance this year. So they are not looking at the edge rusher position, as a major need, like a defensive tackle or like an offensive tackle. Tanner Bush said, "What is the plan for Dax Hill now that we have him, Geno Stone, and Mike Hilton?" What I will say is Geno Stone is going to play most likely the free safety position. He can play strong safety, but that is where he was at his best, just playing the deep third of the field, playing cover two, being the last man in defense in his zone. He's not going to match up, one-on-one in the slot. That would be more of a Dax Hill role, right? He's not going to match up with your tight ends. That's just, he's 5'10". He's not really athletic.
You want to know my my opinion on what's going to happen?
Yep.
Everybody's clamoring for corner.
Yep.
I believe Dax Hill is going to be moved to corner. I believe that. I think Dax Hill is going to take on that slot role once Mike Hilton leaves. Once Mike Hilton's contract runs, he's got one more year left on his deal. I think they're hoping Dax Hill slots into that spot. He showed the ability to cover tight ends. And guys, I promise you, within the next 3 years, I don't know what they're going to call the spot, the position, but they're going to make a position. I mean, the league is for covering tight ends because it's becoming a thing where teams are starting to have a specialized guy on their team that can strictly cover tight ends. And it's usually a hybrid safety corner type of guy. I believe your starting corners are going to be DJ Turner, Cam Taylor-Britt, Dax Hill as slot corners, trading spots with Mike Hilton in obvious passing situations. I think your free safety is going to be Geno Stone, Jordan Battle, Dax Hill will slot and add that as that third safety that the Bengals had liked to run the first 2 years under Lou. That they were hoping to run this year under what's his face with Nick Scott.
Yeah.
That didn't work out. That's my prediction.
And just to add on, like you said, slot cornerback was not a position, I believe, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. It wasn't. Nobody, they're like, what do you need a 5'9" cornerback for? What do you need a 5'10" cornerback for? You don't. You want length, you want height. That's why we were seeing it was the era where these big body X wide receivers, Julio Jones, Mike Evans, Calvin Johnson, that was the era of football that they were playing, which is why you're like, okay, why are you going to draft a 5'9" cornerback? He's not going to guard, a Calvin Johnson, but with the way the league's working, more slot wide receivers. Yeah, like honestly, like there is now a need, and slot cornerback is widely regarded as a position, is one of the most valued positions. So I think you're right. I think a tight end and a cornerback spot that's going to be able to guard a tight end, I think it definitely could be, a new potential role at the NFL. And one last thing real quick, Brian Hollander said, speaking of safeties, is Von Bell a potential depth piece? In my opinion, if I'm Von Bell, I don't know why I would want to come back with the three safeties in the room, because I still feel like Von Bell can be, a starting caliber to a backup safety, but there's not a lot of room in the Bengals safety space. I think Tyson Anderson still signed as a backup. And Von Bell, he wouldn't be seeing many snaps unless there's an injury, because those three safeties are Dax, Geno, and Jordan Battle.
So I want to get to some of these questions here. We've got some good questions. Michael Ross says, thank you, Malik and Daniel, for being here. If you're a Bengals GM, what's your next move? Offensive line, defensive line, cornerback, defensive line, defensive line. I'm going after two defensive linemen, and then I'm addressing the offensive tackle position, which I think you can do both at the same time. It's not like you have to just do defensive tackle and forsake the other. That's what I'm doing 100%.
Yeah, I think this extra last part of free agency, I think it's very simple. You get one of the two guys, defensive tackle, you get a depth piece, figure out your offensive tackle spot, and you get a veteran cornerback. The rest of the positions, I'm fine with. I think you can look at the draft. Maybe if you want a backup interior offensive lineman, there's some good guys in the market, but in the draft, you're gonna have your pick. So
your pick of the litter.
Yeah, there's not a lot of, like I said, there's not a lot of crazy needs for the Bengals. Like cornerback, you're confident. Safety, now you're confident. Linebacker, you signed Akeem Davis-Gaither again. Tight end, I like it. Shaping up good, but this
is the point where the Seahawks were a couple of years ago, right? Where you're at a crossroads of how do you keep this championship window open? They mismanaged money, of course, and they probably allocated it to the wrong areas. But keeping the roster together is so much more than just adding pieces to the roster, because it's the point where you need to try to keep good players to keep the championship window open as long as possible. And you have to kind of sift through who can you actually win with and who is probably should be out. There were some more questions that I want to get to.
Jalen Prescott said, please read my last comment. He said, wouldn't it make sense for us to get out of his contract and trade him to the Pats? I think he's talking about Higgins. Yeah. For a second and a third round pick to pay. Yes, it would make a ton of sense to trade him for a second and a third round pick, and you get $21 million in cap. So it definitely make a lot of sense.
100%. But I think that you have to be willing to call a spade a spade. I think at the end of the day, there's a guy in the draft that I like a lot. Isn't going to require you drafting him in the first round. You probably can get him in the second, maybe the third. Who knows? But Jermaine Burton from Alabama, that guy is absolutely a playmaker. He's a game changer. I really believe that. And he might not be of the 6'5", 6'4" receiver that you like, but he's a guy that can do a lot. He can run almost every single route in the route tree. And he's a guy that I feel very, very comfortable in. I talked to my guy Trevor Sycamore over at the draft, over at PFF, I'm sorry. And he talked to me about how that's this 10th receiver ranked on this board. So guy that we're very, very aligned with, that we both like. Somebody said, Malik, if we finish free agency with average defensive tackle and right tackle, where are you going at 18 if Latham and Newton are on the board? I'm going Newton. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going Newton. Because here's the thing. You can still grab a tackle in free agency. You can still grab a tackle in free agency. And this is being widely regarded as the deepest tackle class. It's not being widely regarded as like the most deepest defensive tackle class. So if you are able to get a premium player such as Newton on the board, I think I would run to the podium. I saw somebody ask what would your next three moves be. Somebody said Homer. You know, if I'm the Bengals and I'm signing 3 more players, here's what I would do.
Yeah.
These might not be sexy, but here's the moves that I make right now. I would go after Eric Armstead. I would pull out all the stops to get him. You have the cap to make it happen. Try and make it happen. I'd also sign Tyler Tart because you better probably get him for a cheaper-ish deal, or even Sheldon Rankins. You throw you throw any of those. One of those guys are interchangeable for me. But I'll tell you what. One of the next moves I'm going to make. A guy that I've been hammering the table for the last 2 seasons that the Bengals really liked in the draft process. I am going after Dalton Risner. I'm sorry, I am. I don't know where you slot him. I don't know if you put him at right tackle, but you play at Kansas State. I don't know if you put him at guard. But he's a guy that I've seen enough film on that I don't know why the rest of the league doesn't hammer that guy's door down. And he wants to play football. He is a baller. He wants to ball. And he just wants an opportunity. So those are my next 3 signings. I feel like you can get Dalton Risner. Let's say if you slot him even in that guard, and you probably get a tackle. Let's say you take a flyer on Mekhi Becton because you're saying, hey, I'm going to draft the tackle. I would do that. I know the fan base is out on Jonah Williams, so let's address that. My guy Mike Reeves, haven't talked to you in a while, brother, but he says, would you add? Where's it at? I can't find the comment. It's so many. He said, would you add John Feliciano? I'm sorry. What do you guys think of adding a Charlie Heck or John Feliciano on the line? Maybe drafting Guyton at 18. I'm sorry, I'm not drafting Guyton at 18.
Guyton is too much of a project, and this is like he's very unrefined. And yes, you can work with him, but you look at how he compares to these other guys. The league is also lower on Guyton. He's not in the same tier of the Latham, Fuaga, Olafashanu. He's not in that same tier. Guyton he's got to figure out, hopefully, if he can get in the first round. Just because the tape that he put out was good, but you're betting on him for intangibles and what he potentially could be. Very, 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 underutilized. He didn't start a lot at college. So I'm definitely not a huge Guyton guy, especially at 18. I think you're going to have a lot more talent. Real quick, just go back to that. I think just one name. I really think that Xavier Howard is a guy that the Cincinnati Bengals will look at, later in the process after you figure out defensive tackle and offensive tackle. But that's, one of the pieces outside of what everybody else is talking about that I think he could be a good depth piece at your cornerback position. So that was definitely one. And looking at some of these other questions, punter. The market for punters on free agency is not good. All the big punters were pretty much signed. And I don't know what you do. I think that they must trust Brad Robbins. Yeah. But I would personally bring in competition, whether that's in the draft or
100%. Brad Robbins showed you what he's capable of doing. He showed a lot of flashes last year. He just needs to be consistent with it. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, he showed definitely potential, and he was a rookie last year. He's got more to show. Jim Gegner said, what do you guys think the Minnesota Vikings do at quarterback since Kirk Cousins is gone? I don't necessarily know, but I would look to draft the quarterback. And if I'm the Minnesota Vikings, you also have to look at it like this. Their new GM, this is, I believe, his second year as GM. You got a second-year head coach in Kevin O'Connell. Time is ticking for you guys, right? As much as people want to say, all right, head coach and GM jobs are safe, time's ticking. So I'm not heading into this year with a Sam Darnold as my starting quarterback. I'm not. I'm looking to trade up into the draft to number 3 to go out and get a guy like Jaden Daniels, or I'm trading up into the top 8 to go get JJ McCarthy, because you've got to do something at the quarterback position. So, or you go trade for Justin Fields. If you trade for Justin Fields, that solves, that gives you another year of leeway if you're the Minnesota Vikings. But if you don't have a Justin Fields, I think it's Justin Fields, or you trade up to 3 for Jaden Daniels. We got some people say, Sway said, what do you guys think was the biggest reach so far in free agency? I think I think you got to go with Robert Hunt with the Carolina Panthers. You see with Dan Morgan, the new GM, and their new head coach, Dave Canales, they want to build around Bryce Young, but there's building around Bryce Young, and there is overpaying for guys. Robert Hunt making $100 million as an interior offensive lineman. Definitely not a fan. I don't think Kirk Cousins was a huge overpay for the Falcons, because Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson, I'm very confident that they believe Kirk Cousins can lead them deep into the playoffs. You look at the talent that they have, And I understand their owner. I think Arthur Blank is looking at it's time. It's time. And Terry Fontenot, their GM, is definitely saying now's the time. You got talent on the roster. Their defense took a huge step forward last year. They went out, made some splash in free agency. Kirk Cousins makes them a legit playoff contender. And Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson must be confident in their ability to field a championship level roster. So we'll see.
People ask me, will you guys be back later tonight live? You never know. It's like a news team. We're live 24/7 around the coverage for all things free agency related. We appreciate you guys for tuning into another episode. If you guys could do us a favor, give this video a like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got over 500 people in the chat, only 129 likes. So if we can get that up to 250, greatly appreciate you guys. We appreciate you. Hopefully you got our post notifications on as well, because again, just because it's the off season, our coverage don't stop. We still have State of the Jungle. We still have the sit down Malik Wright. We still have nonstop coverage coming out almost every single day. We hope that we're back here live with you guys later on this evening. But until then, we hope that everybody has a good night. And we'll see you tomorrow, if we don't see you tonight, live at 6 p.m. for another update of NFL free agency frenzy. And that at that point, it will be what, day 4?
Day 4 tomorrow.
Day 4, wow. So we appreciate you guys.